This video attempts to give an explanation of the CAT4 assessment and the results you will receive. What is the CAT4 and why is it used? CAT stands for Cognitive Ability Test, and the 4 indicates that it is the 4th version that the creators have developed. We use the CAT4 to assess students' abilities in 4 different areas, and this is to see where their strengths lie and areas that they may need support in. It allows us as teachers to plan effectively for the students that are in our school and to plan programs of learning for them. Students are given 4 types of tests, or batteries as they're called, which assess how they think about tasks and solve problems. It's important to know that an abilities test is very different to an attainment test where students study the content that they have maybe been learning over some time and then they're assessed in it, like in a summer assessment. That is an attainment test, whereas an abilities test like the CAT4 is not something that you study for, but instead it is where you solve problems that are given to you on the day of assessment. The 4 batteries start with verbal reasoning. A large part of education is presented through language using words, so assessing this ability helps us to understand a student's general level of attainment. Here is a problem that students would face in the CAT4. So you can see the words up on top right there are rain, fog, and sunshine. The student then has to choose the word that works with those 3 words that matches up. And we can see that it is snow because that is a type of weather. It is not winter, it is not weather, it is not dark, it is not night. It's snow because it's a type of weather. In the that's verbal classification, and in verbal analogies below it, we can see that carpet is to floor as curtain is to what, and the student must choose window to get the correct answer. It is not shade, it is not hang, it is not drapes, it is not cloth. Quantitative reasoning is the second battery. Next to verbal reasoning, the ability to work with numbers is one of the most frequently required capabilities in education. Fields such as mathematics, science, geography, and economics make considerable demands on students' quantitative abilities. Here are some examples. So we see we have 1 is to 2, and then 5 is to 10. So we have to figure out what's going on here. The student has to think with numbers and choose that the right number there would be 8, that the number is doubling each time. So I'll just show that, and we call that number analogies. The second type of test that they get in this battery is the number series. So you can see that 8, then 5, then 17, then 7, then 16, then 9. There's a sequence going on, or a series, and what's happening is every second number is going down 1 from 18, 17, 16 to 15, and that's why 15 is the right number, whereas in the other sequence they're going up by 2, 5, 7, 9. Non-verbal reasoning is the third battery. This battery assesses the ability to think and reason with non-verbal material. It helps us to assess students' general cognitive ability by looking at how they solve problems involving shapes. This is a very important battery, as often if a student's mother tongue or first language is not English and they kind of suffer in that exam or have low scores in that assessment or in that battery, it picks up in the non-verbal that they actually have the ability, and that it's just the lack of English as we're testing through English that is affecting their verbal reasoning. So this is very helpful there. Or often we can pick up maybe sometimes a learning difficulty can be spotted here. Let's say if non-verbal and verbal reasoning were scoring very high, but the quantitative battery was very low scoring, we might look into to see if there is a learning difficulty around numbers or dyscalculia, same as if the verbal was very low and there was no other known reason, and quantitative was quite high and non-verbal was quite high, we might start to suspect that there could be dyslexia going on there, and the student could be tested for this. So let's have a look at some of these. We see the shapes here that students have are given in the exam, and they have to choose the shape that is best, matching the three figures that you see. And you can see that it's E here, that in terms of how the sequence of shapes is going in the figure classification. And then in figure matrices, we have one arrow up to two arrows up. So one arrow down goes to two arrows down. Last battery then is spatial ability. Again, this battery assesses the ability to think and reason with non-verbal material, but it involves spatial awareness. It helps us to assess students' ability to solve problems involving shapes and space. So we can see here in the figure analysis, just to explain briefly, we can see up at the top right what is happening here. The student is told in the assessment that the paper is folded over and then a hole is punched through. And then what would the paper look like? They're asked what would the paper look like if it's unfolded. And in this case, we can see that it's D, because the paper was folded, it was unfolded, and the two punches that went through the paper are now visible. Figure recognition is the other type of the spatial ability battery that is given, and the student, you can see the shape that's underneath. They're asked which one from A, B, C, or D is the shape fully, as its whole shape, where is it in? And you can see in the bottom right of the shape of E, it fits in perfectly there. So this is, how we are testing spatial ability. So then when the your child has completed the CAT4, then it is sent away for scoring and it is sent back, and this is the report that you will receive. It's called the individual report for parents, and you can see the yellow bracket here, the yellow band is the average band. And just to talk about that word for a moment, average just literally means in the mathematical sense that is where most people will fall, that is the average range. So this student's profile would show that their verbal and non-verbal is within the average range, but quantitatively and spatially they're falling just below the average range. If it fell, if they say the purple bar chart, so the purple bars were very close to the wording of verbal quantitative showing a very low score, that child would often be considered for a lot of support in school, and it would show us as a school that child needs support, and importantly it shows us in what areas that support is needed. If a child's bar chart, say, is where the purple bars are coming up to the right hand side, and the very top of that to the right would be considered in the kind of very strong ability or gifted or talented in that area. And again, it gives us important information in terms of how to cater for the strong ability in that area. In your report that you receive, and very importantly then, there's a summary underneath this profile, and that will give advice on how best you can support your child's learning throughout their time in school. As it says there, it will be accompanied by written recommendations to help improve your understanding of your child's learning preference, with suggestions for how to offer support at home. It will usually talk then about whether there is a maybe a balanced profile. That might be if, say, everything was similar in terms of the four batteries, or perhaps there's a spatial preference or a verbal preference, and that might indicate or give advice that your child would prefer subjects that are quite, more content heavy, like history, and that involved a lot of language, or whether they are maybe involve more spatial intelligence, like construction or engineering. But if you get a balanced profile, it will kind of say that the, the the child is, free to choose in terms of interest, because they may not struggle with any subject. Um, as always, please make contact with us here and with myself if you have any queries. Thank you.